Let's head now to the courts. And the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial resumed today in the High Court in Pretoria. It was adjourned last week, you'll remember, to allow the defence to go through more cell phone downloads of two of the accused. You remember there were photographs that potentially could have placed them at a certain time, etc., with the latest witness, Constable Zungu. Well, today, defence lawyer Zandile Msholo concluded her cross-examination of Constable Sizwe Zungu, and then a new witness, Mamshedi Masetla, a senior forensic analyst, took to the stand, talking the court through samples taken from the murder scene. Now, this is DNA samples from the hat that was left behind, etc. Let's bring in our senior reporter, Slindelo Masikane. So, Sli, we're going to get to the DNA stuff, which is fascinating.
Yes.
But let's just wrap up where we are with Zungu, because Zungu was saying, I was at a hostel.
Yes.
These guys were with me. They went off to do something. They came back and they were freaked out and blah, blah, blah. And basically, they knew before anyone else about what had happened.
Yes.
So, obviously, the defence is trying to pick holes in what he had to
Absolutely,
say. There were questions about which hostel were you at, etc. If you sum it all up for us, where did we end with Zungu?
In essence, we ended with the cross-examination of the lawyer for accused number 5, that is Advocate Zandile Msholo, wrapping up her cross-examination. And we've seen over the past couple of weeks what the defense, in essence, has been trying to do with Zungu, a character assassination. You know, why is he coming out only now? You know, almost 10 years later, his statement was only taken down earlier this year. So, you know, a lot of discrepancies around the character of this particular witness. I think we saw a little bit of a character assassination as well, but also just trying to poke holes in terms of the testimony around the times where he says they were at the hostel, you know, disputing that they were ever at that hostel as well. But I think what the state was able to establish with Sizwe Zungu was that he knows them. He definitely knows them. There is a connection there. Whether or not it's enough to convince the judge that his evidence is admissible, I think we will see at a much later stage when we argue.
Can I just jump in and ask a point of clarity there? There were a whole lot of photos that were taken on that night, right?
Yes.
Which have been admitted into evidence. Surely those photos not only show a date, but they also show a place. Do those photos link those 5 men to the same location and area as Zungu?
No, because apparently, it's either the cell phone that took these photographs had not activated that location function, or it didn't have it at all. So all we have in terms of the data of those cell phone, those photographs, is the time in which they were taken and the date. So we know that they were taken on the 26th of October 2014 at around 5:30 in the afternoon.
Is Zungu in any of the photos with the 5 accused?
Not that I've seen, but you know, we know that there are many thousands of these photographs, and the state has picked a select few that they're leading in their evidence. But we know, of course, that the defense itself has requested the entire bundle or the entire downloads which were taken off of the cell phones. And now, why we didn't continue in terms of hearing from a cell phone data expert, which was the expert that was expected to come after Zungu, is that the defense essentially objected, saying that we don't have the complete you know, copy of these downloads. We're still awaiting some more evidence or analysis from a certain service provider in terms of these cell phones that are allegedly linked to the accused. And so the defense said that it's unfair on the accused to lead another witness when they don't have the complete set of downloads, saying that it prejudices their capabilities to prepare a proper defense as well as their right to a fair trial. Let's take a listen.
3 years now, but cell phone records are not yet ready, my lord. Now, the problem that we have with this kind of an approach is that each time we put a version to the witnesses that the states are calling, they come up with something new. Then come the next witness, we are also expected to put a different version from the first version that we would have put to the witness, on the basis of which we couched our defense based on the information that would have been available then, madam. This prejudices the accused person's defense in their case, madam, because at the end of it all, we are going to argue about the credibility and the honesty and the reliability of what these witnesses are saying, madam. It seems to me like the state was not ready from the beginning. And if that is the case, my lord, it is not an embarrassment for the state to stand up and say, my lord, we are still busy investigating this case. We're therefore requesting a very long postponement of this case. I don't think any colleague of us was going to object on that one, my lord, because then we would know that come that point, after that very long postponement, then we know that the state would have said, you know what, we've got all the information now. This is going to be a machine and a train that is going to run from Pretoria to Durban without any stops and goes, my lord. But as things are now, I can tell this court, my lord, from the solitude of my conscience, that we are yet expecting another surprise in terms of new evidence that is going to come up from somewhere, and that is going to necessitate this stop-and-go issue, my lord, which I say in the main is prejudicing the manner in which we are couching the defense on behalf of our clients, my lord.
Yeah, and that explains why the defence is objecting to the cell phone analyst coming up. So what happened next then was Mamshedi Masetla, a senior forensic analyst, and this moves us on to some really interesting information. Swabs taken for DNA testing from the hat. Now, the hat was worn by one of the intruders, allegedly left at the scene.
Yes.
Okay. And I would imagine they took from the bottles that were drunk, etc., etc.
Yes.
So those DNA samples, strictly speaking, if any of the 5 suspects were indeed in the house that night, they should have been able to be linked directly.
Absolutely.
So talk us through what happened in court.
So quite an interesting afternoon. You know, I think we weren't actually all expecting to hear a little bit more of the details around how these accused are possibly going to be linked through DNA. Now, the forensic expert that we're hearing from is somebody who has more than 25 years experience in service, you know, somebody who has worked in the lab for quite a number of years, and he obviously began by telling us his qualifications, but also explaining exactly what DNA is, you know, trying to break it down for the court to be able to understand exactly how the analysis of the samples that were taken at the scene from those who were in the house as well as the accused was going to be analyzed. So we know, of course, that the first responders on the scene, your likes of Sergeant Thabo Mosia, collected certain exhibits from the scene. There was a hat that was allegedly belonging to one of the intruders. Swabs were taken from door handles. Swabs were taken from blood splatters from the TV stand, from the kitchen floor, from the walls, to, you know, basically paint a picture in terms of what happened in the house in terms of the DNA. We know that some of the DNA, of course, in terms of the blood splatter, belongs to Senzo Meyiwa. That is confirmed. The cans of alcohol that were found, they were also swabbed and tested, one of which came back, the Heineken belonging to Meyiwa. That's the DNA that was found there. The Smirnoff bottle, I understand the DNA was linked to Zandile Kumalo, who we know, of course,
so they were conclusive.
They were conclusive.
Even amidst allegations that the scene was tampered with, because we know that the neighbour came into Klima. This is why that was such a disaster.
Which is also what another interesting with the DNA is that the crutches, you'd remember Dumelo Mandlala, one of those in the house, had crutches on. His DNA, though, was not found.
On the crutches?
Yeah, on the crutches. So, you know, it raises...
So it's not foolproof, actually.
The defense still has, I think, an opportunity here to kind of poke holes in this testimony. But, of course, we're preempting this. We'll see. But at this stage, what we know in terms of the hat itself is that there was an XY chromosome that was found in the hat. What was interesting is that the forensic expert says that the DNA that was found does not conclusively link the suspects in the dark.
Any of them?
Any of them. It excludes them.
All of them?
Take a listen.
Okay, let's listen.
And then we also have swab 12 from Heineken, and then that particular swab included the deceased. So those particular swab from the bottles is the ones that you swab where the person drinks. Is then that you will know who was handling that particular exhibit. And then there is a Scotch head, and then on that particular Scotch head that was found on the scene, that particular Scotch head exclude the suspect.
So let's explore the implications of this, because we know that only 2 of the 5 are believed to have gone into the house. The others were waiting, etc., etc. But you would imagine, having put a hat on your head, that there would be some DNA.
Yeah.
So does that absolutely collapse the state's case or not?
I don't think, not necessarily. I think we're going to hear a little bit more detail around this XY chromosome that was found in the hat. We know so far from where we concluded with the forensic expert is that the XY chromosome could mean that there's more than one male DNA in that particular hat, or there's male and female DNA that was found in the hat. So that is where we ended. But I think where we're going with this, Sally, is that the state is obviously leading circumstantial evidence. This is evidence that you're trying to show the court that there is a reasonable prospect that these men were in the house. Which ones? In particular, we're looking at, of course, accused number 2 and accused number 3. We know that there's been a doc identification of accused number 2. Some of those who were in the house pointing him out in the dock to say that is one of the 2 intruders, but we know that the other intruder is said to have been short, with dreadlocks, and was wearing a hat. So I think that is where we're now going in terms of the evidence, where we're going to see the forensic expert breaking down that DNA that was found in the house, because now it's going to go down into granular details around that XY chromosome and possibly possible links with one of the accused suspects. It's not a conclusive conclusion in terms of the DNA that was found, because like you heard, it excludes the suspects. But I think where the state is going is that XY chromosome, there are some features of it that could link.
So it could end up being a maybe.
It could be a maybe. It could be a maybe.
Oh, I think the trial's going to be very, very interesting tomorrow. Thank you so much for that update. eNCA senior reporter Slindelo Masikane. And it is 9 years this month since the football star Senzo Meyiwa was murdered in the home of his girlfriend's family in Vosloorus.